Shabbat Shalom and welcome to the Tents of Israel. I'm your host, James Gillespie. We are joined tonight by Mr. Ryan Knoll and Mr. Chris Jones. Let me jump over there on that Skype call so you can see their pretty faces. Let me get this out of there. If I can get it out of there. There it goes. Okay. Every Shabbat night, as the Sabbath is beginning, we try to join you here on the Tents of Israel. We want everybody to join us live. We know that a lot of people watch us after the fact. It seems like our viewership is going up a little bit the more that people get accustomed to us being on every week. So one of us will try to monitor the chat. I'm really bad at that. So if you're in the chat and you ask a question and I don't get to it right away, it's not that I'm ignoring you. It's that I have three screens here that I'm trying to pay attention to at once. And if I don't see it and somebody doesn't alert me to it, I just missed it, and it's not intentional. I know that we're getting going here and we're allowing people a few minutes to join us, but I thought we would, and I know that last week we did a one on wars and rumors of wars. That might have been the week before last week. But I thought we would entitle tonight's The Delusion of a Secret War. Okay? Because I believe that a delusion has been cast over this nation that we're just blinded to things that are going on around us. Shabbat Shalom, Glenn. It's good to see you in the chat room. But when we see these wars and rumors of wars happening around us, and this spirit of delusion that's been poured upon this nation, we talk about politics a lot, and you can sit here with some of these uber liberals and show them, literally the facts. I haven't really looked into it because I'm just a little aggravated with what's going on at the White House. But supposedly they found a bag of cocaine that now gets mysteriously. It's like where's the bag of cocaine today at the White House? And there's all these memes popping up all over the internet of first one, the press secretary with cocaine on her nose, and Hunter Biden with it smeared all over his face. So the memes are funny, but why this is the first time in my lifetime we've ever had an instance where we're looking for a bag of cocaine around the White House. It's just craziness, the world that we live in. That literally a crackhead is sleeping at the White House. Seriously. I heard a news report that this guy he's got his own home, but he doesn't stay there. He stays at the White House, probably extorting money from a skiff somewhere where it can't be detected, extorting money from more foreign nations, $5 million at a pop for him and the big guy. And then, his drug dealer can't get in because of the Secret Service, so they throw a bag over the fence, and somehow now it's moved from the fence into the foyer, into the White House, now into the right next to the Situation Room, was the last one I heard. So, it's the magical moving bag of cocaine, and Secret Service couldn't find a fingerprint on it anywhere. That's the amazing thing about it. So it's been handled by all of these people, and it's been moved multiple times, but nobody's fingerprints are on it. It's just I don't know how we're supposed to believe this kind of stuff, but that's the spirit of delusion that's been poured upon this nation. Nothing to see here. Just move along. And it seems to be getting worse almost daily. So when that kind of stuff is going on, we're just going to have to step back and ask the Father to keep our eyes open and keep our minds stayed upon Him. So with that said, I am going to jump off of this screen with us three guys and jump over here on a screen where there's a little bit of scripture that I wanted to go over. So just read along with me, and then we'll jump back into this. And I've got a bunch of videos that I'm going to play tonight because I made the claim that I was going to make the case that we're in a silent war on American soil and prove it. And I think if you watch everything that I've compiled here, you would have to be under a spirit of delusion not to see that we are in the middle of a silent war. Okay, so my first passage of scripture is 2 Thessalonians 2:10. And it says, "And with all deceivableness and unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved." So this spirit of delusion is not just poured upon the unbeliever, it's poured upon the believer as well. And it's because they didn't truly receive the love of truth that they might be saved. Because we know, we've talked about this, and when we're talking about prophecy, that in the last days that there is going to be a remnant that is saved, that is going to be secreted away into the wilderness, is what scripture says. And the enemy or the dragon will come after her like a flood and spew out of his mouth. So when we see that thing happening, a lot of those people are going to be caught into that deception. The Revelations 13, and he had power to make war with the saints and to overcome them. If people aren't prayed up, if they're not keeping their minds focused on the Father during this time, they're going to be caught up in this deception. I don't have a whole lot of scripture to go into tonight, but these three little passages here about deceiving and deception, I wanted to just kind of highlight as we go into these videos and that kind of stuff, just so we can get a good, clear picture that Scripture knew this was going to happen, and this is the time and the season that we live in. So Jeremiah 9:5 says, "And they will deceive everyone his neighbor, and will not speak the truth. They have taught their tongue to speak lies and weary themselves too." And that's what I was talking about with this, these uber liberals. You can literally show them a video of Donald Trump saying, I love black people. And they'll say, "Did you hear that? He said that black people have no love in them." I mean, they just make this stuff up because they want to paint him as a racist and a xenophobe and all of these other names that they these nomenclatures that they try to attach to him, or any other Republican that is trying to speak out against them. I mean, it's the boogeyman syndrome. And I mean, you can literally hold a video with his words and then their words, and they are so deceived in their mind that their minds can't even truly comprehend what it is that he says. But this isn't just happening with liberals and liberal Democrats and Republicans. It's happening with believers as well, because we've been taught the Bible and we've been taught it in one way. So then when we go read the Bible, we don't read it for what it says. We read it for what we've been taught it says. That's our biggest problem. That's why we're falling away, and that's why we're caught in this spirit of deception. We're being deceived on a daily basis. I just had a big debate with, probably my oldest best friend for 20-some years. I was on Watchman Radio with him. And I made a comment that Judas, might have went to heaven because the Bible says that he repented. And I mean, in his mind, because of Christian theology, no, Judas is the son of perdition. He had to go to hell, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Even when we use scripture to kind of contradict that. And, the Bible says that there's only one unforgivable sin, and that's blasphemy of the Holy Spirit. And I made the point as well, that we've all sinned and fallen short of the glory. We've all betrayed the Messiah. So should Judas's repentance be rejected and our repentance not? I thought he said that he was no respecter of persons. So, I mean, I'm not teaching on that teaching tonight, but when we make these things, we've held these deep, long, ingrained teachings in our minds, so much so that when the Father starts pulling them out of us, it's hard, and it feels like it doesn't feel like it's real. It feels like it's ripping at our soul. when these false teachings are ripped out of us. And then it creates anger when we realize that we've been lied to all these years about that kind of stuff. And that's what Jeremiah is talking about here. That everyone will deceive his own neighbor, and then they won't speak the truth because they've taught their tongues to speak lies and weary themselves too. So they'll tell a lie. I mean, in my mind, what that's saying is they'll tell a lie to cover a lie, and then they'll tell two more to cover those two lies. So it's just the way that works. But my last passage of scripture here is Jeremiah 29:8-9. And it says, "For thus saith Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh of hosts, or Yahweh of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, let not your prophets and your diviners that be in the midst of you deceive you." Okay, so everybody wants to go to the prophet because they want the easy way out. They want somebody to tell their future. They use the prophets like psychics, but here the Father's saying, don't let your prophets and your diviners that be in the midst of you deceive you. Neither hearken to your dreams, which you cause to be dreamed. Okay, so he's saying you're going to have a bunch of crazy dreams. Don't think every dream's from me. You caused some of those dreams to come to pass. You're dwelling and meditating on this crazy stuff before you go to sleep, so your subconscious is giving you this stuff. So neither hearken to your dreams, which ye cause to be dreamed, for they prophesy falsely unto you in my name. I have not sent them, saith Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. Commit, saith the Lord, commit iniquity or lawlessness. Okay, if you're committing lawlessness, he's not sending you those dreams. The only dream you're going to get from him is repent or perish. That's the dream you're going to get from him. The rest of them, you being this great man of God or this great woman of God and doing great works for God when your life is full of sin, I'll guarantee you that's not from him. The prophet that's going to slap you on the forehead and tell you, that God's got riches stored up for you, and he's seen you crying on your pillow at night, and that 6'2", 250-pound hunk of muscle that you've been checking out at the gym is who he's chosen for you. That's not a prophesier. That's a prophelier. So you better you better get things straight with the Father and pray that this spirit of delusion be taken off of you. Because we're going to show you some things here in a minute, and I know Chris, although he informs himself about politics, it's not his passion. But maybe we'll provoke old Chris into something tonight with some of these videos, and hopefully we'll all see what's going on. I'll try to not play the whole videos because I don't want the whole show to be taken up by videos, but let me get us guys back on the screen here. Chris and Ryan, you're on the screen now. But when we start thinking about this spirit of deception that's been poured over the whole earth, it's not just believers. I mean, sure, believers are being prophelied to all the time. And I mean, I knew this one brother, really close friend of mine. I remember he brought this green 5-subject notebook to me one time. And he had written down every time he had paid tithes and every time he had given an offering and how much it was. And then he said, see, this is what God owes me. He owes me back this 10-fold or 100-fold. I forget how many fold it was that he had told me. And it's because some preacher had told him that now, I mean, his faith was shaken when the Father didn't pay him back that money like he thought he should. We lost Chris there for a minute, Ryan. He'll be back. Okay. Yeah. He'll be back in a minute. But when you start thinking about that spirit of deception that's fallen on people, Ryan, what is going through your mind?
What is peculiar about it is the level that some people are at with the deception. Some people are really on board with it, and then some are not. And so um, it's just extremely peculiar why some of these liberals are just lashing out at us conservative believers. It just there's no rhyme or reason to it. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it really
I
doesn't.
don't know. I just can't explain it. You talk to some people, and they're they're awake with what's going on, and then you talk to others that are just they don't have a clue. They have no clue whatsoever. Their head is in the clouds. They're not paying attention. They're just living life. They're just accepting what's going on. Um, they're just going along to get along, I guess.
I, I think you're right, but I mean, when we present things like the $5 million for the big guy that we now know happened. This isn't some fictitious story that we're making up now. They have the documents proving that the big guy took $5 million and his son took $5 million from Burisma, and not to mention all the money they extorted from China and other countries around the world. And they've hit them in these shell corporations. All of that's common knowledge now. Now this bag of cocaine, showing up at the White House with a known crackhead living at the White House, and they're wondering, well, I wonder who that cocaine could have belonged to. Well, I wonder who it belonged to. I mean, that's just craziness to me. When you hear stuff like that, Chris, what goes through your mind?
Well, actually, I'm glad I don't keep up with politics when I start hearing that kind of crazy stuff. But no, that's the first time I've heard that. I'm not surprised that you find a bag of cocaine. I mean, there's been quite a few other things that go on in the White House. I think that might be worse than that.
Sure.
I know that nobody's covering. I mean, it kind of is a big deal, but I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of secrets in that place.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and it's not just Democrat secrets; that's Republican secrets too. I'm not trying to say that the Republicans are standing there with clean hands. That wasn't the gist of what I was saying there. But when we have this stuff being made public, at least I mean, some stuff was made public on Bill Clinton, but they still kind of kept that swept under the rug a little bit. Some stuff was made public on Nixon, and they swept that stuff under the rug pretty good until he was quit. When I mean, if you believe all the Marilyn Monroe stories and all that kind of stuff, I mean, there's been some evil go on that house that we call the People's House. So I don't on both sides, and I don't want to pretend like it hasn't. But when these types of things come out, I mean, seriously, you have a known drug addict living in the White House. I mean, his own admission, he's struggling with drugs. He's a cokehead and a crackhead. And now a magic bag of cocaine shows up at the White House, and they're wondering who in the world could that cocaine belong to? That makes no sense to me. Maybe it belonged to the cokehead. I mean, let's check there first. Let's see if he's missing any. But that spirit of delusion that is on the nation, that these Democrats will hear that kind of stuff and know that that's true, and they'll just say, oh, that's just the Republicans coming after the Democrats again. They're just attacking Joe through his son. They can't do anything to Joe, so they're trying to get him through his son, Hunter. I mean, it's just, this is the crazy stuff that they convince themselves of. It's just like we were reading there in the scriptures a minute ago, that they dreamed these dreams, but the dreams were of themselves. These people are deceiving themselves. Yahweh don't even have to send them a spirit of delusion. They willfully accept a spirit of delusion so they can remain in whatever fairy tale they have concocted in their mind. That's where a lot of these people are, I think. And if we look at it on the believer side, I mean, people that I have known for many years have done ministry with. I mean, it's like, you know, they get stuck 15 years ago, and that's where their doctrine ended. They didn't grow any further than that, and then you move past that, and now you're the heretical one, because they got stuck. So that spirit of delusion is being poured out upon the body of believers as well. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense when we really stand back and look at it. Either one of y'all got anything on that?
I've watched a video from Sebastian Gorka, which he was in Trump's administration in the White House. I don't remember what his role was, but he had a pass. He had a blue check pass. He could move freely around the White House, and he said that doesn't happen. He said if it was, he said whoever brought or they had a clearance. Visitors, you know, anybody coming into the White House, they're checked, their bags are checked, their cars are checked. He said that was coming. That came from the family. He said you don't bring that. You can't get that. You can't smuggle that in the White House and not be an inside job. So he said that's ridiculous. So anyway, he kind of set the record straight. So it was crackhead Hunter or Kamala or Joe himself. I don't know. Maybe maybe they all.
I don't know. They all might be a bunch of cokeheads. I know Joe seems kind of peppy in the morning time and not so peppy in the evening time. Maybe his coke has run off or something. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. I don't want to pretend like I do, but I don't want to live in that spirit of delusion either. It's just, the whole thing is just craziness when we look at it. But I'm gonna jump over here to some of these videos. If y'all have your phones out or your other systems up where you can watch some of these, I thought a couple weeks ago we showed, you know, some military movement and how they were moving equipment and that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to start there tonight. I'm going to tell you before I switch over to that screen. I know I've said this before, but we might have some new people listening to this. But I spent the majority of my life. I joined the military when I was 17 years old, right before our first stint in Iraq, and served this nation until I lost my back and my knees. And they sent me for an early retirement to Fort Living Room. So when I speak about military things, I am not speaking from a place of somebody who is unintelligent on that topic, okay? So the movement of military equipment, I'm familiar with that. The planning, the strategic aspect of war, I know what we did when we went to Iraq. I know what we did when we went to Afghanistan. I know how we set the scenario up. So we normally go in and we start, you know, messing with the water, mess with the food supply, mess with the utilities. Then we take out all of the communication, and then we break down the bridges and we set up border crossings and all of that kind of stuff, because we're compartmentalizing whatever it is that we're going to war with. So right now in the United States, I'm sure everybody's heard on the news that the basement dwellers, you know, this generation of whatever they're calling them, can't afford to buy homes. Well, that's not unintentional. Our government has set that scenario up that in 2 generations, the family farm will be a thing of the past, and they'll move everybody into these city complexes where they're more easily controlled. They don't want people like myself living out in the woods, you know, on 15 or 20 acres, being able to survive on their own. They may allow a few people to do that, but not enough that it's going to be any real threat to them. So they price them out. It's called being priced out of paradise. That's what we would call it. We're going to price them out of paradise, so they have to sell their homes and move to where we want them to move. Me and Steve Davis was talking about that last night. they had taken a trip up to another country, and the homes there were so expensive. I mean, a home that would normally cost you around $300,000 here, he said would cost you $1.3 million there. So basically $1 million more there than here. And but you could go buy that condo that was nicer than that home on the 30th floor of some building for $250,000. So what are you going to do? And that's how they're repositioning, reorganizing the United States. They want these 10-minute cities. They want that to be a reality because it's about control. It's a military operation. It's a military exercise, and we're seeing that happening right now. This whole balloon thing is what alerted me to this plan. Okay, so it's just a weather balloon. And multiple weather balloons in the same place, and we let one of them fly all the way across our nation. As a military mind, I'm thinking that's not a weather balloon. That is a one-way communication signal that they're sending to sleeper cells within the United States. And right after that, go back and watch the timeline. Right after that balloon comes through, we start having train derailment after train derailment happening specifically over water sources like the Ohio River and different rivers. And we're going to look at some of that stuff. So I'm going to play a few videos here when we switch off the screen with all of our pretty faces about the train derailments first. So we'll look at them and let you see that this is just a military exercise. So let me jump over there to that screen. I believe that train derailment happened right here in Oklahoma at Verdigris. Didn't quite make it to the Verdigris River, but it's a derailment by a river nonetheless. Okay, so let's get off that one and go to the next one. Try to get these as short as I can.
Bird's eye view of the train derailment in Ohio.
Okay, I'm gonna pause this right here. Now, everybody look at that big old black spot there. That is just the fumes when they tried burning those chemicals off of the train derailment there in Ohio. That's what the fumes and the smoke cloud did from that train derailment. And all of that toxins were sprayed up into the air, and they don't think that that's making people sick, breathing that kind of air. I'll just let it play. Up to the next one.
This map shows the train derailments that have happened in the United States this year since the start of 2023, and it's only March. Just this week, 3 more.
Okay, so that's as of March. I think there was 40 some different trains that had derailed in March of this year. That's just craziness.
More train derailments happen, this time in California, Minnesota, and North Dakota, and you have to ask yourself, what is going on? Many of these trains, like the Ohio train derailment, contained toxic and hazardous materials, and the ones that don't contain building and infrastructure material like iron or food supply like grains. People are starting to wonder if these aren't accidents, but instead something far worse. These train derailments have poisoned parts of our water, our land, our air, affected our food supply, and kept important building materials from going where they need to go. And yet mainstream media isn't reporting any of this. And it makes you wonder why. Let me know what you think down below.
So apparently today, June 24th, there has been a train derailment over the Yellowstone River. He said at this time there was no immediate threat. And then immediately after he posted this, he followed up with this update. Water treatment facilities are shut down. And if you're in the area, please try to conserve water.
Okay, so that's the latest one at the Yellowstone. No threat here, but we're going to shut down all the water treatment plants, and they're on lockdown, so they got security around them, so you can't go test the water or anything. But nothing to see here. Just keep moving. Let's look at this final one.
Barges, as in plural, slamming into a dam on the Ohio River. This is all happening at a dam near Louisville, Kentucky. Emergency officials say 3 barges got loose, hitting the structure. You can see one of the barges partially underwater. Louisville Emergency Management saying one barge is carrying 1,400 tons of methanol. It's a naturally occurring chemical, but it is incredibly toxic if consumed. Louisville's water department saying that the wreck is downriver from the city's water intake. Hazmat crews are monitoring the situation.
Okay, so I could have played you 10 more or 20 more videos of just train derailments, of that kind of content. But if that's not going to convince you, I don't know what will. I mean, if it was one, all right, no big deal. But we're having multiple train derailments over major waterways. That's a military thing. It's attacking the water supply. If they don't have water, you can easily control them. Food, water, lights, utilities. That's the infrastructure. So let's look here at the food distributor, see if they've attacked that.
There once was a ship that put to sea, and the name of the ship was the Billy O.T. The winds blew harder, bowed it down below my bully boys blow. There once was a ship that put...
Okay, pause. Food distribution centers and manufacturing plants burning mysteriously. Okay, keep
to
playing
sea, and the name of the ship was the Billy O.T.
Pause it again right here. Bill Gates buying farmland at astronomical amounts. Nothing to see here, guys. Keep it moving.
The winds blew harder, bowed it down below, my bully boys blow.
Let's jump to the next video.
You don't find that suspicious? You don't find that suspicious?
Okay, these are all the food plants that have burnt this year. Okay.
You don't find
so
that
more food
suspicious?
processing companies burned, and you don't find that suspicious.
Next video. Now we have heat every year, but this is Kansas, okay? Heat wave kills at least 2,000 cattle in Kansas, official says. Yeah, a heat wave killed all of them in one day. Ryan, you're a cattle rancher. You ever seen that happen? I mean,
Nope.
If you had 2,000 cows go down in one day, what would be the first thing went through your mind?
Somebody poisoned them.
100%. 100%. You don't lose all them cows in a day. They're not stacked up there like that. I mean, and the government tries to sell you wolf tickets, telling you it's something else. That's why they're spreading the delusion. Look at all them cows. It's ridiculous. All right, so now let's look at this right here. That was cows. This is 100,000 hens. 100,000 hens burn up in an afternoon. And all of the chicken houses that have been burning up all over the country. I mean, I could have done a whole show just on that. Of all the chicken houses that are burning up, all the eggplants that are burning up. It's craziness what's going on here, guys. Okay, so there's your beef industry, there's your poultry industry, But let's listen.
I've always liked to play with fire.
Okay. And I think I have one final one here.
Over 18 food processing companies burned down. Are they all being burned down?
Fire at the Saladino food processing plant. Now, here's a look at the fire last night near Shaw and Golden State. Several employees had to be evacuated from the building while firefighters put out the flames.
So just moments before we went to air tonight, a plane apparently crashed at a General Mills plant, a food plant in Covington, Georgia. 6 tractor trailers are reportedly on fire. You're seeing pictures from the scene right now. This is the second time in a week something like this has happened. On April 14th, the plane crashed into the Gem State Processing in East Idaho. What's going on?
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there. Planes crashing into food distribution centers, food manufacturing centers. Huh. Nothing suspicious here. Just keep your head in the sand and keep moving along.
Here, well, the story gets weirder. Food processing plants all over the country seem to be catching fire. A couple of days ago, a fire destroyed the headquarters of Azure Standard, one of the largest organic food distributors in the country. At the end of last month, a fire severely damaged a fresh onion packing facility in South Texas. In Oregon, a potato chip processing plant just reported a boiler explosion that sent workers to the hospital. Here's a news report on that.
Eastern Oregon, where crews are battling a major fire at a potato chip processing plant. Air 12 flew over the scene at Shearer's Foods on Highway 207 in Hermiston. We're told the fire was caused by an explosion of a portable boiler there. 2 people were taken to the hospital.
So industrial accidents happen, of course, but this is a lot of industrial accidents at food processing facilities at the same time the president's warning us about food shortages. They're getting hit by planes and catching fire. What is going on here exactly? Jason Rantz hosts a radio show in Seattle. And
all right. So food shortages. We've gone over that now. I just told you what we would do if we were doing a military exercise somewhere and we were trying to shut down a city, a state, a nation. This is what we would do. We would assault their infrastructure. Anybody remember Iraq? We went in. We flew sorties for 30-some days there at the beginning. We ran tanks across the desert. We blew up bridges. We blew up power plants. We blew up all of their infrastructure, cutting off their food, cutting off their water, cutting off their escape. And then we started moving our ground troops. Okay. So that's what's happening here. This is a Cold War. This is a silent war that's going on. I just proved to you that they're destroying our water. There's our food. Now let's go to our power grid. Let's listen to this.
Well, tonight, the nation's intelligence agencies are warning of cyber threats from Russia and are urging U.S. critical infrastructure defenses to be reinforced. As CBS's Bill Whitaker reported on Sunday night's 60 Minutes, it wouldn't take much to throw the entire country into darkness.
The grid is a sprawling target. There are actually 3 in the U.S.
Okay. Talking about throwing the whole country into darkness. I don't want to play the whole thing. I just want to run through this fairly quick.
Behind the gates is a power substation, a key part of our nation's power grid. Here, raw high-voltage energy is converted into the electricity that supplies power to our homes, schools, hospitals. Basically, they keep the lights on. This heightened security is because of a string of physical attacks across the country, where people have used hand tools, firearms, and metal chains to cause blackouts and millions of dollars in damage.
So you can put all that stuff back in your car, you can secure everything, actually.
The Bonneville Power Administration alone has seen at least 20 attacks just since late November.
That's the one right there.
But security like this is the exception.
What's the security like at the power substations throughout the country? It kind of runs the gamut. There are really rigorous security requirements for really important assets on the grid. For other facilities, you've got, less requirements.
Securing the grid.
Okay, let's look at this next one.
Homeland Security is warning of a potential troubling escalation in tactics from right-wing extremists. Catherine Herridge has more on this, and she joins us.
Yeah. So now we're going to blame, if there's a blackout in your local city there, Chris, it's because of white supremacists, right-wing supremacists. Okay. So they're not just white supremacists anymore. They're now white right-wing supremacists. So we have to classify the Republicans are bad as well, So let's make all Republicans be identified with white supremacists. Okay, it's just craziness. I heard this guy that shot up the place down there on the Texas border. They were calling him a white supremacist until they showed his picture on TV and he was a Mexican. I mean, it's just crazy. This is the craziness, the delusion that people are under. Okay, they called what's the Supreme Court Justice guy's name? The black guy, really famous guy.
Oh, Clarence Thomas.
Clarence Thomas. They were calling him a white supremacist. I mean, you're going to call Clarence Thomas a white supremacist. So this is the narrative. This is the spirit of delusion that they're trying to place in people's minds. That if anything bad goes on, well, it must have been those white right-wing extremists. Now, it couldn't have been Antifa. It couldn't have been them. It couldn't have been Black Lives Matter. It had to be those white right-wing extremists.
From Washington, Catherine, we understand the power grid could be a target.
Good morning. According to the intelligence report obtained by CBS News, these groups have developed credible and specific plans to attack the power grid since at least 2020 as a way to disrupt the country and the ability of government to operate.
Pay insufficient attention to the frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack, which would bring to a complete halt to the power supply, transportation, hospital services, our society as a whole.
Oh yeah, I didn't even go into the hospital aspect on this. I forgot about that aspect of it. But if you knew all of the hospitals that have closed in the United States that had more money than they've ever had due to COVID, but magically just closed their doors in the last 3 years, that number alone should make you go, whoa, what's going on here? I mean, all these little hometown hospitals are out of business. Now you have to drive 30 to 45 minutes to even get to a hospital anywhere. It's absolute craziness.
Is now on the scene in North Carolina after another power substation has been hit by gunfire. This is now the third one targeted. Our senior investigative reporter Aaron Katersky has been working the case. Aaron, what have you learned tonight?
This is an Energy United substation near Thomasville, North Carolina, David, and it was damaged by gunfire around 3 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday. This substation serves customers near Greensboro, southwest of Greensboro, but there were no outages as a result of the damage. So far, we're told there are no suspects, no motive, but authorities are now working to determine whether there's a connection to what happened in Moore County, North Carolina.
No suspects, no motives on that one.
In North Carolina this year,
yes,
in January, February timeframe, there was a physical attack on the power grid that left how many people without power?
45,000 households without power.
So that's so basically an entire city.
Yes.
What was the attack?
The FBI is investigating a series of attacks on U.S. power grids. In North Carolina, thousands were left without power for days after gunfire damaged 2 substations. Shots were also fired this week near an energy facility in South Carolina, and recent attacks were reported.
Okay, so I want to stop there. This is the same shooting where they shot the same thing. The previous news report says, oh, there was no outages. So they're lying to people, telling them there's no outages. Now, when it comes out, the truth comes out about it, there was 45,000 homes without electricity. When are we going to pull our heads out of the sand and realize what's going on here?
Reported in Oregon and Washington State.
So they never quite found the perpetrator. There were rumors that this was some kind of right-wing crazy attack, but we never really got to the complete bottom of it.
Okay. Couple more here.
That does the government. The U.S. is now admitting that there have been over 100 attacks on our electric.
I want you to pay attention to that. The U.S., that's what they're admitting. They're admitting that there were over 100 attacks this year on the U.S. electric grid.
Electrical grid in the past few months in the United States. And they admit they have no frickin' idea who's carrying out these attacks. Blackouts, winter, deep winter coming. Correlation, of course, correlation is not causation. But let's investigate. So here's Michael Snyder reporting on these attacks. He writes, someone who is purposefully sabotaging power plants all over America. Someone has been attacking power plants all over the country, and federal authorities are trying to determine who it is. In recent days, we've seen significant sabotage on both the East and West coasts. So it can't just be one individual that's responsible. During the first 8 months of this year, there were a total of 106 attacks on the electrical grid in the United States. And that represents the highest number ever recorded in a single year. Hopefully authorities will be able to get to the bottom of the mystery, because winter will soon have...
Okay, so 106 attacks on the electrical grid, just that in that few months, okay? Ever since we saw the balloon, okay? So now the electric grid starts blowing up. Somebody's obviously attacking it. We got trains derailing over water. We got food processing plants and distributors centers being burnt to the ground. Planes crashing into them. Nothing to see here, guys. Nothing to see here. Let's click out of this one. Got just a few more videos to show you here. So let me go back. That was the power grid. Here's the military movement. This is a few new videos that I found.
40, there's going to be 100.
Over 100 trains, over 100 tanks being moved again. Okay, this movement has been going on for a while now, okay? So for all of those people who were saying, oh, that's just the National Guard doing summer maneuvering. Number one, we don't move equipment like that in the view of public. I'm an ex-military guy. I'm telling you, we don't do that. And if we did do that, if it was the National Guard and it was this big of a joint operation that would have lasted for about 2 to 6 weeks and it would have been over with. So we've been seeing this military movement now for several months. Forget about weeks. This has been going on for months. So keep paying attention.
Can we just make love? Not war. Oh, can we just make love?
Troop transports, fuelers. Come on, guys. Oh my goodness. This is a training exercise. I'm not going to say this is an all-out war going on here. This is a training exercise. This maneuvers at a military base. Okay. Look at the scale of this training exercise. I've been part of thousands of training exercises in my career. Okay. Look at the scale of this training exercise. I'm going to tell you, this scale right here, I didn't see that in Iraq the first time. Okay. I want to put that in clarity for you. This amount of troops, this amount of movement, I didn't see that amount of movement, that amount of training with that amount of people the first time we went to Iraq. Okay, so you better pay attention. You better pull your head out of the sand.
40. It must. There's going to be 100.
We already watched that one. Let's go to the last one here. I think I showed this one to you guys a few weeks ago. But look at all these helicopters. Those helicopters like that are moving equipment and personnel. That's what those helicopters are used for. Where are they moving all of that equipment and all of that personnel to? That they would be flying this sort of mission in the daytime. Those types of helicopters are Blackhawks. See them guns on them? They're fully loaded. We don't move fully armed Blackhawks in broad daylight across the United States. Come on. I mean, we've got to pull our heads out of the sand. We've got to really start watching what's going on around us, because a spirit of delusion is going to come up on us. And the last set of videos I want to play for you here, and then we'll all sit around and give our uneducated opinions about what we just watched. Is the border. So look at these. We got 4 little videos here I want you to see. Watch these.
This is Stupid Steve from Alabama reporting. Bad stuff going on Mexican-U.S. border.
That's gunfire, live gunfire on the U.S.-Mexican border. The gunfire.
United States and Mexico.
Go to the next one.
Good evening, this is a breaking news report. We have just received word of a heavy shooting at the Mexico border. According to sources, there have been multiple casualties reported. Authorities are urging people to stay away from the area and to seek shelter if they are in the vicinity. Eyewitnesses report that gunfire erupted at the border, causing panic and chaos. People are taking cover wherever they can, and emergency services are on the scene. At this time, there is no word yet on the motive behind the shooting. Authorities are investigating the incident and trying to determine what happened. That's all we have for now. Stay tuned for further updates on this developing.
Either one of y'all hear about that on your news? No. We live in Oklahoma and Texas. I mean, surely if something was going on that close to our homes, we would have heard something about it on our local news.
Yeah.
Craziness. This is the aftermath of it. Just a little shooting on the border.
Todo el pueblo está
American consulate was tapped. More gunfire. Got one more video here. That's heavy artillery there, guys. That's not just gunfire. That's heavy artillery being fired.
Ahí está la madera, mira, ahí está. Mira. ¿Qué fue eso rojo?
See the rockets flying across there? Look at them. See where the bright light is? Look, the rockets keep being shot from there. We're supposed to believe that's just a little uprising of the cartel. No, there's an all-out war being fought on our border.
Mira, ahí están esas madres que están volando.
Oh my God.
Su pinche madre.
All right, guys, let's bring us back on camera here. So, I went to the main camera and go to Skype call. So, when we see all of that stuff, I don't think you even have to be military minded when somebody assembles that for you to see that there is something going on in this nation. There's something going on that our news media is keeping us blinded to. We're not hearing about those things on the news, and if we do, it's a little 30-second blip and they move on. There's nothing to see here, guys. It's no big deal. Your water's not being poisoned. Your food's not being done away with. I know Chris has a large family, and Ryan's got a family, and I have a family. I've noticed my grocery bill going up, doubling in the last year or two. Have you guys noticed that?
Yeah.
So,
expensive.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolute craziness. And I read this study that we talk about the poverty level now, and they say the poverty level is somewhere around $26,000. So if you're an individual, $26,000, or a married couple, I can't remember how much it was, but for a household, that household income, I think, was $26,000, and if you to be right above the poverty level. So the study was that in the 1950s, that the average person made, I want to say, just I'm making numbers up here. All right, so let's say that they made $5,000 a year, and you make $50,000 a year. They did this comparison at that $5,000 a year that they were making in the 1950s. They were buying a house that was comparable to our $300,000 homes right now. They were able to go buy groceries every week. They were able to pay for the lights and buy a new car every 2 years on that $5,000 a year salary. They said if we had the same standard of living today as they had in the 1950s, that the average person in the United States median income should be around $88,000 a year. How many people you know in your atmosphere that is making $88,000 a year? Not very many, right?
Not a huge percentage, I wouldn't say. Not one individual. I mean, those households back then would have been single income, father out doing the work as well. So I mean, now we're talking about dual income, and the women are out in the workforce.
Absolutely. That's the point. We got two people in the workforce now, and they're not making what somebody was making in the 1950s. That's real economics. You know, what will your money afford you? That's real economics, because you can make $1 billion, but if a car costs you $2 billion, what is making the $1 billion profit you? I mean, it's just fake numbers that they're throwing around. So it may seem like you're making a lot more money. I know for myself, you know, I used to think that, you know, $50,000 a year was a good salary. I don't know how these kids are surviving on a $50,000 a year salary now. I mean, my son, you know, just turned 20 or 21 years old. Let's see. Yeah. 20 years old. They live in an apartment, a little tiny 1-bedroom apartment. It might be 400 square feet. I doubt it's that big, actually. They pay $1,300 a month. I mean, plus utilities. That's not utilities included. That's plus utilities. I don't know how these kids are making it. It's just amazing to me that we see this delusion being poured out upon the nation where, you know, everything's all right. You're making better money than you've ever made. You make more money than your parents ever made. So what are you crying about? No, you're making a quarter of what your parents made, and you're not smart enough to realize it because your parents were able to buy a new car every 2 years. You're not able to even get out of their basement. I mean, there's something wrong with this picture, and we somehow are buying into the delusion. The same delusion, you know, that has been passed upon the rest of the world is now manifesting on us because we don't want to confront it. We don't want to say what's really going on. So with all of that that's been presented here tonight, what does that make you two guys think of?
Well, you compare the 1950s prices to right now. We've lost the dollar has lost 86% of the value that it had in the 50s. So, you know, they've designed it so that, you know, I mean, their ultimate goal, I feel like, was to, you know, tear down the home structure, you know, where the man works the job and the woman stays home with the children. You know, back in those days, you could afford to do that. But, you know, since they started printing more and more money, putting all this money in circulation, devaluing the dollar by 85%, what that forces the families to do is to put the woman into the workforce to help pay the bills, and then that breaks down the family structure. So, to me, that was their plan all along. Was to, you know, like I said, devalue that dollar, put the woman into the workforce, and then come out with credit cards, because it's kind of ironic, you know, they kind of run out of options, but they introduced the credit card to the American family to help support the, you know, the monthly needs,
the deficit in your wages.
Deficit. And so now we've got credit cards, and we've got 30-year mortgages on boats and campers. You know, it's all by design. It's just designed to tear down the family unit. That's my opinion.
I remember my first car was a '79 Firebird. I mean, I love that car. And they used to say on the title what those cars sold for brand new. And if I remember correctly, that car in 1979, which was probably the top of the line muscle car on the market, sold for right under $7,000. That's I want to get that in your mind. That car sold brand new for right under $7,000 in 1979. Now, fast forward to 2023, if you went and bought a new Camaro, which would kind of be in comparison to that, you're looking at $60,000 to $70,000 for a V8 Camaro, top of the line, dressed out. $70,000 to $80,000. So do that math. I mean, do that math and tell me that you're making more than I was making back then, because I promise you, you weren't. It just, the math doesn't add up.
What kind of yearly wages were going on back in '79? That was the year I was born, by the way.
Oh my goodness. I was born in 1972, so I didn't buy that car brand new, but they used to keep the price of the title on that car. I didn't want people thinking I was old enough to buy that car brand new.
What do
you think the wages were, though, then, as far as average, you think?
I remember my first job, Chris, minimum wage had went up to $2.35. It was the first time that they had a minimum wage hike in I forget how many years. It was a major accomplishment. because I believe when I first started working, it was $1.85, and then it moved up to $2.35. And I was working 8-hour shifts as a 16-year-old kid at Stillwell Foods here in Stillwell, Oklahoma. I remember that very specifically. So that would have been in the probably 1988, 89, that the minimum wage was $1.85 or $2.35.
But it's not a whole lot higher than that now.
yeah, not too much. I think Texas is $7.50, Oklahoma is $7.50. Some of the other states have bumped it up to $15, and even at $15, that's nothing. I mean, I was telling somebody the other day, when I had the tile business, I would hire a helper that with no experience and pay them $8. When they became a trained helper, I would pay them $10. When they started being able to set a little bit of tile, I would pay them $15. When they could set tile without my supervision, I would pay them $20 an hour. If I was running that tile business today and we didn't sell out in 2008, it would probably be somewhere around $45 is where I would have to be paying that person who could lay tile without my supervision to be able to lay tile. I don't know how you can keep a business running and keep good employees and not take care of them any better than that, because $25 or $30 an hour now is just a standard wage.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. I've got more questions, I think, than answers over all the stuff that you presented tonight. We want to talk about the wages and the end goal for, obviously, destroying the American family. They've done a pretty good job of that just through media, entertainment industry, just getting our minds set on things that don't really matter, not the truth, the Most High's word. But as far as going back to, the silent war, the spirit of delusion, I'm like, well, I put some questions down, like what military, I mean, if you have any ideas, is it a foreign occupant that's coming in? I mean, we know we talked about spy balloons, but is this an inside operation? What's the end goal for what they're trying to do as far as attacking water supply, food supply? And then at the end, of course, I mean, what kind of, how do people pull their head out of the sand, so to speak, and what steps for action should people take? Because honestly, I mean, the majority of the stuff that you talked about today, I literally had no clue until I get it from my news guys, Ryan and James, because I just don't pay a lot of attention to that. But it makes me really think that I probably should. And I imagine there's quite a few people listening that maybe are in the same boat as me. So what do you think about that?
When we look at all of that, and Chris, Ryan can jump in here as well, but when we look at all of that and everything that's going on, I watch the border pretty close. And it's not just our southern border. We're always talking about the southern border, but they are flooding. Chinese are flooding over our northern border. And now they're flooding over our southern border as well. And it's not just Chinese. It's Chinese and Arab and everybody else. I mean, and the crazy thing is if you look at the videos of these people who, I mean, the Democrats are telling you, oh, it's just women and children. What about the babies? I mean, that's what they always scream every time something goes on. What about the babies? To try to emotionally manipulate you into being okay with it. But when you look at the video of these people coming across the border, they're military age men. I mean, 18 to 30-year-old men in fighting shape. We're not talking about fat roly-polies coming across the border. We're talking about tuned military-age men flooding our borders. Not family units, but the only thing that the news media is going to show you is the family units coming across the border. Because that's what they want you to focus on. That's the delusion. They're they're like the magician. They're holding up this, saying, look at this, look at this. Don't pay attention to what's going on over here. So now that Joe Biden, day one, he started reversing Trump's policy on the border, because before Trump, the border was being flooded with illegal military-age men. We see Barack Hussein Obama bringing all these Arab nationals over here, military-age Arab nationals over here. During his presidency, Trump comes into office. He basically stops all of that, closes down our border. So the first thing that Biden does is he opens the border back up, and we start getting flooded with these military-age men again. They're staging for something. They're doing it secretively, but they are staging for something. Okay, I don't. We better pay attention. We better pay attention to what's going on here, and not be allowed to be under the delusion. What do you got on that, Ryan?
So let's break this down a little bit. You've been in the military for a long time, and you understand military law, and you understand how the military is compartmentalized. And there's things that I don't really understand. I know that there is. Yes, I follow the Q drops, and I follow Q, and I follow a lot of those back channels. And it looks like to me that there is a lot of military that are Trump loyalists.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like there is also a part of the military within the Pentagon that is still Biden cabal run.
I would say probably the majority of the Pentagon.
Is it possible that we've got an internal military conflict fixing to take place, plus an invasion, an alien invasion that we've got to take, that we've got to deal with on top of this conflict that's fixing to break out? Because it took Trump several years to clean up the military. I don't think he got it completely done, but I think a lot of the generals he got rid of, but I think there's still. I mean, Miley's one of them. He's still a cabal general, and I think a lot of the generals in the Pentagon are cabal. So, is it going to be an internal fight within our military, or what are you seeing?
Well, I tell people I got out of the military 20 years ago. And the military has changed a lot in that 20 years. Now, I have nephews and nieces that are in the military today, so I'm still pretty aware of movement. I'm pretty aware of training and that stuff, and all those things have changed. They haven't changed that drastically. So I know for the average soldier, okay, so let's do a percentage. If I was a guessing man doing percentages, I would say that 85 to 90% of the U.S. military of enlisted personnel, okay, we're talking about enlisted personnel, that's command sergeant major on down to a private E1, okay. I think that probably 85% of them, no matter what order came from the White House, they would never fire upon an American citizen. They would never go along with that plan. Now, if you look at that same thing on the officer side of the rank, from a 01 up to a 4-star general, I think we have a different demographic there. I think that maybe we're looking at maybe a 60% that would obey the orders of the president, because they're looking at career type jobs. They're looking at money. They're looking at retirement. Their jobs are more, even though they're supposed to be to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, just like on the enlisted side, they are the officer corps. And so almost everybody who joins on that side of the military has joined for a career. They want to retire out of the military. It's like somebody going to General Motors and saying, no, I don't want to build cars. I want to work in the head office. They're doing that for a career. They're not doing that for a job. So I think we're probably looking at 65% of those that are leading our military that are trying to maneuver maybe our good men and women out of the country. They're trying to, this whole vaccination or the whole whatever, blah blah blah. Don't say that word. That whole experiment they did there for a minute. They saw who was going to be compliant, who was not going to be compliant. So they started weeding a lot of those non-compliant out of the military at that point. And so they're trying to change the demographic. That's what I see happening in the military. So that's why I see that maybe things aren't playing out as fast as they thought that they were going to play out. If all of this dark web stuff is true, I will tell you, most people don't even know how to get on the dark web. Some people's never even heard of the dark web. So if all of this dark web stuff is true and there is this secret internal conflict going on, this military type coup, this governmental type coup going on in our country right now behind the scenes, I think that we're probably pretty evenly matched right now. And there are battles that are being won and battles that are being lost. And that's why this thing is dragging out as far as it is dragging out. I know from a military standpoint, one of my nephews guarded Barack Hussein Obama. Have pictures of him guarding Barack Hussein Obama in the military. He's a Marine. I know that we do not fly helicopters in front of ex-presidents. We don't keep two ambulances in their motorcade. They don't get motorcades of 20 and 30 cars. They don't get police escorts shutting down entire cities for them to move. We don't do that for ex-presidents. So why are we seeing that with Donald Trump? Those things give me pause and make me think that a lot of this stuff going on in the dark web, that there's some validity to it. Now I'm going to tell you, there are misinformation campaigns out there that they want to get people stirred up, and they want to give false hope as well, because if you can keep people hoping that somebody else will pick up the gun and fight, then you don't have to. So they try to sow that into the mix as well. That, well, it's getting done. It's just taking longer than we thought. So you have to be very watchful and very mindful of what's going on. That's why I showed the videos that I showed tonight, showing that there is a military operation going on this soul right now. Okay, I don't. You're never going to convince me that 100 and some trains derail in 1 year over waterways, the majority of them. And all of them carrying chemicals. I mean, that's just craziness. That doesn't happen. That's not. There's no such thing as coincidence. I don't believe in coincidence. 96 over the last three to 4 years, that 96 food distributing companies burned to the ground. That our power grid is being assaulted. That all of these, those are military type operations. So we better realize that there is something going on, and we need to start paying attention, because if it's going on in the major cities, it'll start spreading into the rural communities like ours as well.
Well, I mean, the thing what's difficult is, there was so much gray area when Biden was inaugurated. They inaugurated him before noon, and that is against regulations. It has to be after 12 o'clock.
I'm not as up on military law as this guy, I forget his name, Johnson, I think is his last name. Yeah, Derek Johnson. But he seems pretty sharp on what he's saying. He says basically they didn't inaugurate Joe Biden; they gave him a funeral. Military funeral, and that they actually gave Trump an inauguration at Andrews Air Base there. And if he's right, I'm not as up on that as he is. What I do know is that constitutionally, him not being sworn in by 12 o'clock, there's some problems there. That's never happened as far as I know. So there's some truth to some of this stuff. I just am at a place right now. I don't know how much truth. I mean, that's where I'm at. I mean, it's so crazy.
You see the video of the day of inauguration, and he's riding down. I don't know what street it was it Pennsylvania or whatever, but he had half the soldiers turn their backs to him.
I know. I remember. I watched it.
If that was Trump and those guys turned their backs, wouldn't they be court-martialed?
Absolutely, 100% court-martialed and probably busted to E1 privates and put out of the military. I mean, it just wouldn't be an Article 15. That would be something probably a little bit sterner than an Article 15. You know, that happening. Supposedly, I mean, I've seen video after video after video of the White House being vacant. I mean, nobody there, no Secret Service, nobody there at all. So what's that about? And why does Tyler Perry have an exact replica of the White House built at another place? And how many times have I seen Joe Biden's hand move through a microphone on screen? I mean, there's a bunch of green screen going on here for a United States president. I don't understand all of that. So there's something going on. I just don't want to pretend like I know exactly what that is. I just want to point out this is not normal. That's not normal. And we need to pay attention to those things because I mean, when something's not normal, it should alert us. I mean, my dog starts barking today. You might have seen the picture I posted on Facebook. But my dog starts barking today, and he's not normally a big barker, but he's just barking and won't shut up. Well, we go out. My wife goes out there, and he won't let her get over by the hot tub. But finally, she looks over there by the hot tub, and there's a 6-foot black snake right by the front door, in between the hot tub and the front door. She's trying to strike at the dog. So I don't normally kill black snakes, but because of where he was at and me not being able to get him out without killing him, I just went ahead and shot him and got him out of there. I don't like snakes in the first place, but because I'm a big old sissy when it comes to snakes, and him being by my front door, that's not kosher. So he had to go and learn a lesson. He learned it the hard way, though. But that element of surprise, when things aren't normal, if we're not paying attention, that snake would have had the element of surprise, and he could have struck anybody that walked out that door because of where he was hidden, because of how he was hidden. As soon as they walked out the door, he could have struck them on the ankle, everybody who walked out the door. And that's the way I see this government at this juncture, because everything is so covert. We better pay attention to those things that are not normal, so we can begin to discover the plan of the enemy. Anything, Chris?
I got a lot of questions yet again. You know, I mean,
Go ahead.
I mean, well, it's just okay. So we go down those rabbit holes of who's the president. You know, was the inauguration legitimate? And but now we've got two deceivers. Then I mean, both sides are living in the deception.
Absolutely.
If Biden's truly not the president and President Trump is, then what's the game that he's playing by not being truthful and upfront with the people? I would hate to see that scenario be true. I'd rather see Biden be the president for sure. At this point, just because. Now it's like I'm not going to trust somebody that put together that big a deception. Maybe all for the greater good mentality. I'm still a guy that believes in being truthful and living by the truth. And I don't know. I mean, that just really raises a whole bunch of emotions within inside me. I don't really know how to categorize them because politics tend to get me a little bit fired up anyway. That's why I probably avoid them.
Yeah.
So I'm not emotionally connected to either side, so to speak. I kind of run I'm aligned with Israel, the people group that is the nation, more so than even the American soil I'm on now. But my mind just keeps going. I mean, we talked about snake bites. We talked about spirits of delusion, and I'm not trying to take a left turn, but, I think you've put a lot of things out about that movie that came out, The Sound of Freedom. And I just think it's interesting, that coming out right now, being with the Torah portions that we're on with Pinchas, and, how the last week, the Midianite, women were sent in by Balak to deceive the men and to get them to commit idolatry and worship false gods and to do all kinds of atrocities at Baal Peor. And then we had Cozbi and Zimri come into the Mishkan and do what they did, and Pinchas rising up and killing them. And it's interesting though that they dropped that movie right this week as we're going through that Torah portion, and that the family structure is being torn down by the men being led astray by the sexual perversion, and even the women at an alarming rate now. I mean, everybody knows that I've worked in, within juvenile services for years now, and the amount of sex offenders we used to get on the female side was basically non-existent. But the amount of sexual deviation and perversion that's going on from that gender is, gosh, I don't even know 100-fold what it was. So I mean, it's not only just attacking the men now, but it's now began to affect the women in a strong way. So I mean, as far as the spirit of delusion, we've got to get back in the Word. You read through Jeremiah today, and it's like, hey, the people don't have a love for the truth. I mean, I know that was in Thessalonians, but everybody is now speaking falsehood and not truth. So it's just about getting into the scriptures and then speaking the scriptures when we're out. As far as how do we make the difference when it comes to the politics, I'm at a loss, and I definitely look for you guys. And I think that maybe you are helping me wake up a little bit to say that maybe I do need to get a little bit more involved and a little bit more aware, and maybe starting to understand that as men of truth, we may have to step into some of these places of political activism, if you will, or even sitting in some of these seats that may be coming open before long. I don't know. What do you think about that? As far as going into politics, Ryan, what about you? You think you might want to sit in a seat somewhere, make some decisions?
I have thought about it. I mean, but I think that is our role. Is just to step up and take care of the communities in whatever fashion or capacity that is, and stop letting these liberals and these Satanists or evil or whatever call the shots. I mean, I think that is probably more important than anything. Just stepping up in our communities and being a voice. And like I said, if you need to run for, well, I mean, our kids don't go to school, but I definitely would be a.
Yeah, I think lagging there.
Jerk that finances away from them, wake them up.
Yeah.
But all these school boards need to be they need to be revamped and run everybody off and hold another set of school board members and our sheriffs and our mayors, and it just needs to be a grassroots cleaning up effort. And if that's what we need to do, we got to do it.
I tell people now, Ryan,
we'll pick up arms and go. We'll go fight if we have to. But I kind of think that that's what the calling is just good, God-fearers and standing up in their communities, taking the community back. And I see it starting to happen. But I think we're going to have a better job of it.
I'm an old broken down soldier, but I still got a fight left in me if it comes to that. I don't know how long I would be good for, but I'd be good for a minute. That because that old soldier never goes away in you. I know both of you guys played competitive sports, so there's some of that drive in you guys as well. Maybe you didn't serve in the military, but that thing that it takes to compete, I think is a driving factor for a lot of men. And when we look at that aspect, I did sit on the school board. I don't ever want to sit on a public office again. But I tell people, you're right now in the current political climate, your most important vote that you have in the current political climate is for your local sheriff. So that's number one. So you need to investigate whoever's running for sheriff up one side and down the other, because that is the most that is the guy that is the senior law enforcement agent in your state. They can, if they wanted to, they might lose their career, but if they wanted to, they could arrest the president of the United States as long as he was in their county. I mean, that's the power, that's the authority that a sheriff has. So a sheriff is your number one vote. And I know that a lot in the Messianic movement, well, I don't want to involve myself in politics because a vote for the lesser of evil is still a vote for evil. And it took me a while to get past that aspect in my mind. But, a no vote is a vote for evil as well. I mean, by not voting, you're voting for evil as well. So I would rather my vote go for the lesser of evil than to just go to evil. Okay. So I know a lot of people, I don't even want to mingle in politics, that kind of stuff. But when we look at the prophets in scripture, they were being called before kings. They were being called before the leaders of their nations to give these declarations, these prophetic things that judgment was coming upon the land. So they were fully aware of the political system that was taking place in their land at that time. Sure, our politics may look a little bit different, but should we not be involved? I've had to reason that with the Father a couple of times. So the answer for me is me personally. I don't know if I would want to sit in that seat, but I would absolutely get behind somebody who was righteous and help them get put in that seat. With anything that I could. Because I think that's how, if there's any hope for this nation, which I don't, I think that we could continue to decline. I know we're going to decline sharply at some point before this whole, the fullness of the Messianic age comes in, because I believe in Scripture. So I know that there's going to be a really sharp decline there at the end, but will we get another 4-year reprieve? I mean, will we get another 2-year reprieve? I don't know, because I think that that's all Donald Trump was. I'm not saying that he is a righteous guy. That's not what I say about him at all. I say that in his humanistic mind, he believed that whatever he was doing was right for this nation, and the things that he did do for this nation, I agree with. I mean, let's put Supreme Court justices on there that are going to stop the murder of innocent babies. Let's do that. That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. Let's move the embassy out of Tel Aviv and move it to Jerusalem where it belongs. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. So those good things that he did is what would secure my vote for him again, because unlike every politician that in my lifetime that's come before him, it wasn't just words that come out of his mouth. It was actions. It was those deeds that were done, by changing the face of the Supreme Court, by changing our relationship with Israel. I mean, we forget about North Korea. This little nut job Kim Jong, whatever his name is over there, was about to try to nuke us, and Trump put a stop to that. But we forget about that. He had our political prisoners. Trump gets on the phone one day, doesn't send an emissary. He gets on the phone himself and says, look, you better send them back, and you better send them back now. Well, next thing you know, we get our prisoners back from North Korea. So those things I absolutely respect. And I'm kind of with Chris in this aspect. I know that it seems like he's alluding to him being president when you listen to his speeches and that kind of stuff, but I wish that he would just come out and say it. And I know that there's probably a million reasons that he can't, if what is going on is truly going on. There may be a million reasons he can't come out and say it. But if that's the case, I hope that at some point he makes that clear to everybody. And because in my mind, yes, he is being a little deceptive right now. Ryan sent me a video today of a young lady that met with him just recently, and she wore a Trump 2023 shirt, not a Trump 2024 shirt, but a Trump 2023 shirt there, and he was bragging about her shirt and that type of stuff, and basically told her or confirmed, that he was the president, behind the scenes. But I wish he would do that publicly, and it's not just one person saying it here and one person saying it there, because they can be discounted. But when we see all of these different people saying that same thing, and then we see the helicopter escorts, we see the 2 ambulances with the blood packs, we see the military still around him. I mean, he's an ex-president. He's not the commander-in-chief anymore. So why is the military guarding him? I mean, that there's so many things there that are just not done. Okay, but they're being done right now. So it's throwing everybody into this spirit of chaos. I mean, it's not just delusion, it's chaos, because I honestly don't know what to think about it, because one moment I'm thinking, yeah, he's the president. And the next moment I'm thinking, well, maybe not. I mean, and that's the crazy thing about this. It's like we're stuck in this state of suspense, waiting and not knowing. And that's the hardest thing. I remember the build up to Iraq there. We were told every day that we were going to get shipped and we were going to do this and we were going to do that. And we just waited and waited and waited until January 16th, which was my birthday, when a declaration of war was declared. And finally we get shipped. So that suspense, that build up to that day was way worse than probably the time spent there. It was that fear of the unknown. And I think that's where we're being kept right now, which is making our spirits be in this chaotic state that we just don't know. So it's keeping our minds not stayed up on the Father. So I want to keep my mind stayed up on the Father, even with all this political rhetoric that's going on. I want him, first of all, to be directing my feet and not Chris brought up the Sound of Freedom movie. We went and seen that 2 days ago, and I was going to do some little something on that movie after I went and watched it, but I will tell you, I'll just say this about it. If you're a man and you go watch that movie, it's hard to watch. It's very emotional. I felt like that they did a good job of protecting the children that were in that movie's innocence. They weren't showing them unclothed or anything like that. Everything was just suggestive. Nothing was actual skin being shown or anything like that. And it was about child rape. So I think they did a really good job on that. But as a soldier, it provokes feelings and thoughts in me that I don't like to have anymore. So I decided it wouldn't be best for me to comment on it, because those types of things make me really, really angry when you start messing with children. I know that Yahweh gives us this enough that we can control ourselves, but it gets me to a place where I feel like I almost can't control myself if somebody's messing with the kid. So it was difficult for me to watch, but there were some things there that just there was two lines in the movie. One, they were trying to get everybody to focus on, which is God's children are not for sale. Okay. But that's not the line that hit me. The line that hit me was a line from the ex cartel member that had teamed up with him. And he said, when God speaks, you move. That's the line that hit me in the movie. Because when God speaks, we need to learn to move, but we don't even know when he speaks because we're not training ourselves how to listen to his voice. That's the scary thing when we really think about all of that. But then after watching the movie, I thought about it and prayed about it, and the Father started pointing some things out to me in the movie. Jim Caviezel, he wears this medallion on his neck. I know about symbolism. The medallion that he's wearing, I'm not going to go into. It's a pagan symbol, even though he's supposed to be a devout Catholic. So that caused me a little consternation. And then I forget the real guy's name. Ryan, can you remember?
Diesel and
It don't matter. But I see a picture. Hey, I can't remember his name for some reason. I knew it until I started to say it. But I see him with in a picture in an interview after that, and he's got a tie on, and it was like the Father just pointed me to that tie he was wearing, and I start looking at the tie, and he has Freemason symbols all over his tie on his shirt, and I'm like, okay, I appreciate what he did. I really do. Anybody that will put their life on the line and put themselves in a place that they could possibly lay down their life for another, that person deserves our respect. So I don't want to negate anything that he did, but it just put me back into the mind of Hollywood and the evilness that comes from Hollywood and that whole aspect of everything. And I know that they tried to prevent this movie. Disney's the number one ones that tried to prevent it. Most people don't realize what was going on in 2008 when they canned this movie. Disney was buying Fox, and that movie was made and produced. The money for that movie was given to them to produce that movie from Fox. So when Disney bought Fox, they basically shelved that movie and said it's basically never going to get to the public. And we know what's come out about Disney since then, about the child pornography, the pedophilia, and all that's going on behind the scenes there, and how they're promoting gays and pedophilia in that corporation. And that's normally, if you there's a line that I normally want to say is like, if you want to see the most evil people, look at the people who are supposed to be the charities surrounding the atrocity, because those are normally the people that are involved in the atrocity, because they're making money in the charity off of it. And so when we start looking at all the different aspects, I don't want to be under delusion because somebody has played on that patriotic nerve of mine, or has tripped my father's heart that you ain't going to mess with children around me. I want to look at it with clear eyes and not under a spirit of deception. So with all of that said, I suggest you still go watch the movie. I think it's a great movie. I think you need to see it so it'll wake you up to the reality of what's going on in this world and what's happening to the children of this world. But I don't want to portray it as this godly movie that you're gonna find salvation in. It's about waking up to the evil that's going on in this world. And one thing trying to bring this back around full circle, is Trump is the one who put the laws in place when he was in office to stop human trafficking. Okay, I know they're not being acted upon like they're supposed to be acted upon, but he's the one that put those laws in place. I forget, there was another actor. He went before Trump. Do you remember his name, Ryan? Young, good-looking kid.
I don't guess I know who you're talking about.
Took over after Charlie Sheen on that
Kutcher.
Ashton Kutcher. Yeah, he's the one that he really petitioned Trump, about doing something about human trafficking. So I really appreciate that. But you notice since this movie came out, we don't have politicians telling you to go see this movie. We don't have Disney telling you to go see this movie. We don't have Hollywood telling you to go see this movie. In fact, when I went and saw the movie, I was astounded. The movie wasn't even listed on the marquee. The theater wasn't even playing it because it wasn't even listed on the marquee. And then you went inside and you thought, well, there'll be a poster of it in here somewhere. There was no posters of it anywhere. The only place the movie was listed is above the door to the actual theater it was being shown in. I mean, it's like they're trying to keep it a secret. So absolutely, go see it, but see it with open eyes. That's my point to it. Just look at it with open eyes. I mean, we may be going out of the country here in a few days, and if I see some trafficked children, we might be bringing them home with us. I don't know. I'll throw them in Chris's backpack and we'll just bring them home with us. But God's children, if we look at them though, are like those children. We have been so used, so lied to, so abused by this world system. And I'm not trying to even compare it, but I am in a way, because spiritual degradation and physical degradation go hand in hand. And we need to get to the place that we start crying out to the Father, that He'll start revealing all of those, and I believe He is. I'm with Ryan on that stance. I 100% believe that He is the one that's bringing all of this stuff to the light, because after most Americans, if they care about this kind of stuff, they're going to go see that movie, and they're going to be probably made aware of, for the first time in their life, about the millions of children that go missing every year, that are being placed in the sex trafficking. I mean, another line in the movie was, you can sell a bag of cocaine one time, but you can sell a 5-year-old boy 10 times a night. So it's just evil, and it's the truth. So they've realized that they can realize more money out of trafficking these children, and when they're done trafficking them, they send them over to a foreign country somewhere and harvest their organs and sell their organs on that side of the market. So their bodies are never found, but they still get a profit off of them after their bodies are used up. Y'all got anything to say about that before we burn rubber out of here?
No, I mean, I've also heard that the ones that don't get killed off, don't kill themselves, actually go into like Black Lives Matter and things like that, and they're just they're all part of that little crew, just brainwashed and used in a negative way still.
Yeah, another point that they bring up in that movie is that the United States is the #1 destination for these children. That's the crazy thing. We think that we're a holy and righteous nation fighting this kind of stuff, but no, we're the #1 destination for these poor children that are being stolen from their homes and sent all over the world.
We're the problem.
I know. We think we would like to think that we're the righteous ones, but we're not. This nation has become evil, and Scripture says, "Woe unto them that call good evil and evil good." And I mean, so how can we be a good nation when we're the main ones promoting abortion? We're the main ones, dealing in human trafficking and child molestation, child pornography. when we're the main ones doing that, is there anything good about us? Is there anything salvageable about this nation anymore? Has God fully abandoned this nation because of the wickedness that we've allowed in it? Those are the questions that I ask myself sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, those are serious questions. But then you step back and you look, you know, yeah, some say it's a movie. Some say that, you know, it's the end has already been determined. But how do you justify? Well, I mean, let's just take, you know, Lincoln tried to make changes. He tried to, you know, do away with, you know, he didn't want central banks. He didn't want them printing money. He wanted, you know, he wanted us to print our own money, which he did, but they killed him. They killed him off. Kennedy did the same thing, and I know Kennedy had military, you know, also, but you know, he was trying to do the same thing. But the evil that is in this country is just so thick and dominant. I think that the Father is allowing us to see these things. Yeah, it's painful, it hurts, but I think it's the only way. We have to go through it. We got to feel it. We got to go through the emotions so that we can get to the other side. And I think there's a lot of fog and cover, disillusions going on. You know, I don't think Trump can come out and say, yeah, I'm behind all this, because then they're going to say, well, he's a dictator.
Yeah. Or assassinate him immediately.
Exactly. They've had so many assassination attempts on his life. You know, they've tried to kill him because they know what he's going to do to them whenever it takes place, whether it's 24 or 23 or next month. They know the devastation that he's going to come down on them with. And so they're trying to throw everything at him. But if he stands back out of the lie and blames for everything, that's the only way we're going to stay out of a civil war.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they were trying to avoid by doing what they're doing, but not allowing all of us to know exactly what the plan is. We kind of know what the end result is, but we don't know what the plan is, and that's the frustrating part. But you know, if he comes out and says, yes, military, you know, I think there'll be a civil war breakout that you ain't never seen before, and
I think we might have one anyways.
And we may still have it.
If you believe anything that's going on the dark web right now, supposedly we are on the brink. I mean, like Paul Revere is about to run down the road tomorrow and say the British are coming. The British are coming. We are on the brink of war with a bunch of patriots that are ready to do this. I mean, and if they have to go to Washington and kill everybody there and install a whole new government, that's what the plan is. So I agree with you. I mean, we're on the brink of something major taking place in this nation. I think that's why part of the reason that all these troops have been moved all over the country and this equipment's being moved all over the country is just in case a civil war does break out. Because you think we're watching the black web and the dark web? Our government's watching it a whole lot closer than we are, I assure you.
Yeah. And I think it just took time, because I think they've identified and they've labeled, you know, all these predators and you know, aliens coming over, you know, whether they are Chinese nationalists or students studying abroad that are actually military. You know, I think they know who they have now.
Sure.
I think they've pinpointed all that. I think they've pinpointed, you know, all this Soros' army, you know, all the paid actors, the Soros actors, you know, and I think it's taking time, to identify all these groups. But I think you're right. I think we're rolling down the hill into a conflict. I don't know what that looks like or how big it's going to be, but it's coming.
Well, honestly, I would love to live under the delusion that, it's all being fought in the background, and then one day it's all going to play out on the news, and we just get to hear about it. We don't have to experience it. That would be ideal. but I mean, and if that's the plan, if that's the case, hey, keep me in the dark a little bit longer if that's what's really going on. But let's not keep us in the dark if we're losing this battle and we're really going to need old war dogs like myself to pick up a weapon and join the fight. We need time to be able to prepare for that, plan for that, get our head right. So when we get in the fight, we're in the fight. I mean, that's just the real deal. I mean, that's real talk. One soldier to another. If I'm gonna get in the fight, then my head needs to be there. Because if your head ain't there, your body ain't there. So we just gotta know something. So if this is coming to that, we need to know something. That's all I'm saying. Because we got 30 million veterans that probably own 40, 50 million guns and billions of rounds of ammo that are willing to go do what needs to be done to protect this nation. That's the reality that we live in. But if they don't know, and it's being kept from behind them, and the nation's being overtaken in the secret, that force that could be enacted at any moment can be negated as well. That's my thought process on that. But all right, guys, I know that everything we presented here tonight was probably pretty scary for some people who haven't, been paying attention to this kind of stuff and realizing what's going on. And we're not here to make you afraid. We as believers, our only fear should be the fear of Elohim. Ecclesiastes tells us that the whole duty of man is to fear Elohim and to keep his commandments. So that when it all boils down to nothing, that's our only job, is to fear Elohim and to keep his mitzvah, to keep those commandments that he gave us, because this life is as vapors and smoke, and it's over in the twinkling of an eye. So to die in his service would be gain. So remember that and comfort yourself with that. That righteousness shall prevail, even though it looks sometimes like wickedness is prevailing. And sometimes I'm telling you, even as much as I know what I'm saying is the truth, when I really start digging into this kind of stuff, it makes me get angry. It makes me want to, in my own strength, get up and try to go fight a battle that I know that probably I'm physically not able to fight anymore. It's not saying that I won't, though. That I don't know. It's just when a man's a man, he's got to be a man sometimes, and that may happen at some point in the future. And if it does, I know Ryan's there. I know Chris is there. I know Steve's there. I know a bunch of my brothers in the faith are there, and they're going to be men's men. So with all of that said, I think we've probably exhausted that as much as we can. And if you guys don't have anything else to say, we're going to burn rubber out of here, and we will see you next week in the Tents of Israel. You guys got anything?
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. All right, guys, we love you, but not as much as Yahweh does. We've been on here for 2 hours now. So we're going to burn rubber out of here, and we will see you next week on the Tents of Israel, and hopefully we'll have some happy flowers to give you and not some doom and gloom. So we'll see you then. Shabbat shalom.